Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's go to the second part, namely the unaddressed 20th century objection of physical character. There are a number of them by a number of authors. Here, let me start with what I consider an important one for the entirety of this, for numerous aspects of this lecture, all the way to black holes, as we will see. And essentially deals with the point which I indicated before, namely that Einstein's conception of gravitation as being due to pure curvature, pure geometry, without source, is fundamentally flawed because it is incompatible in an irreconcilable way with quantum electrodynamics, and in particular with the electromagnetic origin of the mass. Couple of comments at this point. I should remember historically and make a distinction, again, defend Einstein with respect, and my criticism is on Einstein followers. Einstein, coming from Germany, he knew that all the houses in Europe are made of stone, of marble. And he was one of his first surprise when he landed in America was to see the house was made of wood. So he used to compare the left-hand side of his equation to a house made of marble, and the right-hand side of his equation to a house made of wood. What does this mean? It means that Albert Einstein had indeed doubts about the validity of putting this equal to 0. Einstein was Einstein. The Einstein followers are just political manipulator of abusing his name. If Einstein was alive today, this would have been resolved very quickly. And not so with Einstein followers. So this irreconcilable incompatibility was not published in a journal in which Santilli is the editor, no. Or in a journal in which I had friendly editors, no. It was published at the MIT Annals of Physics, following extensive and extremely detailed critical examination by a number of experts. As a matter of fact, in view of this, of the publication of this paper, I decided to go to MIT to pay my respect, and I was there for 3 years, from 74 to 77. Very well. Let's see the argument very quickly. Well, first let's consider the electron. Quantum electrodynamics establishes beyond any doubt that the totality of the rest energy of the electron is of purely electromagnetic character. Namely, you have an energy momentum tensor, and the T00 is equal to 0.511 million electron volts, which is the rest energy of the electron. So for the electron, there is no doubt whatsoever. Einstein equation must be complemented with on the right-hand side with a source tensor as expressed in this equation, which is, however, first order in magnitude. Again, this is a fundamental point. Now, at this point, everybody will say, oh, but okay, the electron, because it's an isolated charge. But when we have a large mass in which the charge is 0, then the electromagnetic contribution to the mass is ignorable because the charges are opposite. In other words, the argument is that since the charge is 0, this means there are an equal number of positive and an equal number of negative charges, and that they annihilate each other, so the total electromagnetic charge is, or electromagnetic contribution to the mass is 0. Ladies and gentlemen, this again, if this is proffered by an expert, that expert is equivocal, because even though the charges are opposite, we're talking about matter, and the energy is positive, so the energy they add up do not eliminate each other. We are talking about positive and negative charges, not positive and negative energies that you will need to eliminate the electromagnetic first order source of the gravitational fields for a macroscopic body with null total charge. To prove this point, in that long paper, about 50 pages of calculation, I assumed that I did the study of the rest energy of the pi-0 meson, which is neutral, as you know. It's composite, necessarily composite, by particle and antiparticle. I call it parton and antiparton to avoid all the debates at that time pertaining to quarks and other alternatives. The nature of the particles was irrelevant for the calculations. Was a positive and negative elementary charge in very high rotational speed, and I calculated by using quantum electrodynamics. First, the contribution from the energy caused by the rotation of the charge, and then from the magnetic moment. All calculations were done by pure quantum electrodynamical procedures. This is the Feynman diagram for a parton anti-parton structure. This is some of the calculations with advanced and retarded potentials. And then there are pages and pages of calculations done progressively. First with the first approximation, then with the second approximation, then you are adding all sorts of relativistic correction, and all concluded with the same result, namely that the 135 MeV, which is the rest energy of the pi zero, is indeed of entirely electromagnetic origin. So even for the pi zero, that even 2 the pi zero is neutral, then the field equation requires a first order source in the right hand side, and cannot be ignored, which simply cannot be ignored. So the conclusion of the paper are rather serious, because we are talking about the referee accepted. That's why I respected the MIT in accepting this paper. Because essentially established an irreconcilable disagreement between Einstein gravitation and quantum electrodynamics. You have two alternatives, and only two alternatives. Either you accept Einstein gravitation. In this case, you have to rewrite quantum electrodynamics from its foundation. And quantum electrodynamics is one of the most beautiful constructions of human mind of the 20th century, with experimental verification, invariance, and feature beyond any doubt. Vice versa, if you accept quantum electrodynamics as correct, you have to abandon Einstein gravitation. There is no way out. Now, be careful about this, because these implications are extremely deep. We will see in a moment that the singularity, the gravitational collapse as predicted by Schwarzschild, are gone. Because Schwarzschild directly, crucially depends on zero source term. It's a solution of Einstein field equation, not of the modified field equations. Also, this paper, I made a distinction between the gravitational mass and the inertial mass. Gravitational mass is the mass or energy, if you want, more appropriately will be the energy equivalence seen in the exterior of a body, and that is of entirely electromagnetic origin. When we go in the interior problem, then we have additional interactions besides electromagnetic interaction due to short range, whether weak, strong, or other short-term forces, and therefore in this case we have the inertial mass. And it then follows that the inertial mass is necessarily bigger than electromagnetic mass. Let me put it in a different way. When you are in the exterior problem, you are outside a massive body, and you address the real issue, where is the origin of the gravitational field, not the description, but you ask where the gravitational field originates, then when you are at a sufficiently large distance from that body, you only sense interactions that are long range, namely electromagnetic. Then you get the gravitational mass or energy equivalent. When you are in the inside, it's completely different. Then you must necessarily include short range interactions, and so therefore that is the reason why there are two tensors. Incidentally, keep in mind for future comments, the tensor representing the electromagnetic origin of the mass is traceless, as well known, while the other tensor representing the additional short range, weak, strong, or other internal interaction, this is that tensor necessarily has a trace. Keep it in mind. Finally, keep in mind that this essentially is initiates what is the departure from so-called grand unification. In our unification, you try to unify gravitation and electromagnetism. This is a drastic departure, because basically what you have an identity. You have the identification of gravitation and electromagnetic interaction that was indeed fully achieved in that paper. of 1974, published by the MIT Annals of Physics. We will address additional aspects later on. The same paper concluded with the proposal of an experimental verification, namely to have this, we call it electromagnetic head, containing opposite charges like the pi zero at very high rotation, and then see whether they by measuring the difference of the gravitational fields where they are when they are at rest and a high rotational speed, whether indeed we create a gravitational field. The answer is yes. It is known nowadays that indeed highly rotating charges do create a gravitational field. It can be even to extremely weak, of course, but there is a experimental verification of principle, and it is done. It can be done by a neutron interferometry that has indeed a sufficient sensitivity. I tried to propose this experiment to a number of laboratories, but forget about it. The moment they sensed that this implied, when I presented the paper and in which the proposal was made, in those famous laboratory, immediately understood that this will be an invalidation of Einstein gravitation. Ladies and gentlemen, if you think that such an experiment could even be considered anywhere in a laboratory, academic or national of the United States of America today, ladies and gentlemen, if you have this expectation, you have problems. You have big problems. It's impossible. Finally, I have to denounce the fact that this paper, written in 1974, that I propagated personally in copies throughout the entire community of gravitation, with courtesy letters, in any case having appeared at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, which is a center of research in gravitation, I have to denounce the fact that this paper has remained totally ignored, while continuing to use public funds in continuing to use equations that have been proven to be inconsistent without any, at least a quotation for human dignity, let alone or decency, let alone for scientific correctness. Not even a quotation to indicate, okay, this is my view, however, careful, because there are this opposing view by Santilli published in a reputable journal. No, ignore completely. Therefore, abusing public funds, something that unless the United States of America addresses in a very, very sharp and strong way, I'm afraid our beautiful country will decay, and decay. Let's go now to the second unaddressed, ignored objection of the middle of the 20th century, the second part of the 20th century. It stated very bluntly that general relativity is incompatible with special relativity. There are many papers written on this. I just want to give you an idea. Scientists who are serious should study the papers published in referee journal or in books on the subject. The arguments are very clear. First of all, the so-called total conservation laws of general relativity are incompatible with the conservation laws of special relativity. This is a point that's been established, in my opinion, beyond credible doubt by many authors, Yilmaz and many other authors. The second point is that general relativity does not admit a consistent and clear limit or approximation, if you want, into special relativity. Let's review the scientific process. We went from Galilei relativity to the special relativity with a process that is such that special relativity in first approximation recovers Galilei relativity uniquely and unambiguously. But in going from special relativity to general relativity, ladies and gentlemen, this scientific process was truncated. There is no unique and unambiguous way to go on. There is no way whatsoever that I know to go from general to special relativity. Sure, Minkowski space is a tangent space, but this is pure mathematics, ladies and gentlemen. I am a physicist, And I want to see the reduction of the physical law, the total conservation laws from general relativity have to collapse into conservation law of special relativity, which are the generator of the Poincare symmetry. Finally, there is an irreconcilable structural difference. Special, you see, the Galilei relativity is based on a symmetry, Galilei symmetry. Special relativity is based on a symmetry, Poincare symmetry, and it is known that the Poincare symmetry contracts uniquely and unambiguously into the Galilei symmetry. That's serious science. Here, no, it's politics, because special relativity is based on universal symmetry, the Poincare symmetry, and general relativity is based on a covariance. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no chance whatsoever that a covariance can be contracted into the Poincare symmetry. There is a limited manipulation of scientific knowledge for money, chairs, prizes, just because of a body of corrupt academicians hail me and supports me. There is a limit. This goes beyond. Yes, I have to state that this view it is correct, and even though that's perhaps the very reason I remain unaddressed. There are a large number of additional insufficiencies or sheer inconsistencies identified in the second part of the 20th century by many physicists. I can only quote a few of their names: Yilmaz and Marmet and Arpt and so many others. They were talking about hundreds and hundreds, several hundreds of physicists who have expressed their view of the fundamental insufficiency of general relativity. They have all been suppressed, disqualified, discredited, thrown out of the academia. Their job has been truncated, terminated with manipulation. They can only be qualified as scientific banditism. It cannot be otherwise. Certainly it is not a scientific process. I recommend to interested colleagues to go into the Google and do a search on the dissident sciences or criticism of general relativity, and you will see many of them. Unfortunately, I do not have the time to review them, but they should not be ignored.